Hey guys, so I just want to give you a quick disclaimer. I just got back from New York City for a work event, which was pretty cool. It was in the Javits Center for a event that had to do with cannabis beans business, which I think is pretty interesting, especially if we're thinking about the realm of like holistic medicine. And I got a really cool opportunity to meet a lot of like super nice people. I had like a really interesting conversation with an individual. I'm not going to name drop him just because I don't have consent and I didn't run it by him, so I'm not going to do that. But uh, very, very cool. So, full disclaimer, I'm a little bit tired. So, that's it. That's it. That's your disclaimer. Okay, so I'm going to be doing a past, present, future reading for today, and we're going to be using, you guessed it, the Golden Art Nouveau deck by Julia Massaglia. I'm getting so much better at that. Go off. Okay, sorry. I got excited because I didn't even hesitate with her name, and I want to make sure I do her justice. All right, so let us cleanse our deck with our sound cleansing. You're not going to be able to hear it, but that is okay. It is the intention that counts, okay? Right. We're going to call upon our ancestors, our angels, spirit guides, whoever it is that you feel like resonates when you think about protection or divine intervention or those who are helping you get to your highest self. Okay. So let us pull a past card and let's get on with it, right? Ooh, okay. So we got the Queen of Cups. Okay. So give me 2 seconds. Oh gosh. All right. So like we did the last couple times, we're going to read the energy and the symbolism behind the card. Okay. So when you look at the queen, right, look at how her hand is on top of the cup and there's a lid on the cup, right? So when we think about the cup suit, again, that has to do with our emotions or our feelings. So this is a lady or individual, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be like a woman, but this is an individual who is very good at regulating their emotions, okay? They know how to turn them on, they know how to turn them off. So I don't know why, but the first thing that popped into my head was Aquariuses. When you deal with an Aquarius, they can be the most loving, nurturing, attentive people and immediately detached like you never existed. And that's kind of like the energy that I get from here. Although when we talk about the Queen of Cups, I also think about like Pisces energy, Scorpio energy, maybe even Cancers. Um, in terms of the emotional piece, but doesn't necessarily have to be that, right? So when we're thinking about the past, right? So within like the last 6 months to a year, when I think about this context, you have probably been, it feels forced. It could have been a choice, but it feels a little bit forced. Almost kind of like life put you in a position to where you had to learn how to regulate your emotions and you had to learn how to discern when and when not to be emotional, right? So for some reason, I'm getting a lot of like, you went through a lot of things that you didn't deserve. And because you didn't deserve them, you had to make a decision on whether you were going to continue to let your emotions guide the show, or you had to kind of like sit back, figure out a way to contain, right? So again, going back to the lid. You had to figure out a way to contain your emotions so that you could position yourself to get to where we are today, right? So this isn't going to resonate for everyone, by the way, but if you come back, There's no like general timeline for this because it's a collective reading, but this isn't for everybody. So I'm gonna see if well, let's get a present card. Give us a little bit more context. Let's see. The Three of Cups. What a lovely card. Oh my goodness. Okay. Sorry, I get really excited when I see the Three of Cups. Okay. So looking at the energy and the symbolism from this card, this I like to think about in the present moment. We are really trying to prioritize connections. We're trying to prioritize friendships, significant relationships, and we're just enjoying the moment. We're enjoying that natural emotional connection that comes with being with our people, right? So when it comes to this specific card, I like to think about almost kind of like friend date nights, right? Or you're making new emotional connections to a point where like you might be making new friends or you're thinking about making new friends, right? So with this, it's also kind of like a celebration card. So you could be feeling very grateful right now. It could be in the avenue of, again, like friendships in your inner circles a little bit. You might be uplifting those that are in your inner circle. So when it comes to the present, this is a very positive card, especially in the sense of the past card where you were kind of almost like, again, like forced to mature emotionally a lot. And like 6 months to a year, like to some sounds like a very long time, and to others that's like nothing. That's just like a little blip in the timeline that is us, right? But when it comes to the Three of Cups in the present moment, I see a lot of like joy. I see a lot of like laughing, almost kind of like this like comedy club type of vibe going on, right? So with being in the present moment, if in the past you felt very emotional, like not in a bad way, but almost kind of like you didn't know how to navigate being emotionally sensitive, right? And I want to be clear that when I say emotionally sensitive, that's not like trying to make fun or like take a jab because I'm also someone who's like emotionally sensitive, right? But when it comes to being emotionally sensitive, sometimes we can't tell what is our feelings, what's the other person's feelings, or what's like a trigger from the past. So, in my previous reading the other day, I talked about micro triggers, and the brain is very smart and also kind of like weird in the sense of anything can put us back into a specific headspace if the ingredients are correct, right? So in the past, if you were just in a headspace where like anything could trigger you, this is kind of what I'm referencing. So to be in the Three of Cups in the present moment is such a joyous and wonderful card. That's kind of like the tarot equivalent of like reframing your thoughts in a good way, right? Especially if we're talking about like right here, right now, to be fully present despite everything that's going on. Not only is that a privilege, it is one of the recipes for setting yourself up for mental wellness, right? Actually, at the conference today, one of the speakers said the one of the cures for depression is interconnectedness and hope. So with the Three of Cups, if you're laughing, that's one of the telltale signs that there's still a little bit of hope, right? And I'm gonna shout out my individuals who have dark humor because like it's not everyone's cup of tea. But if you can joke about it, if you can find some type of joy, some type of like laughter there, right? You're setting yourself up to understand that even if in the past it was super painful and it was hard, to look back and be able to separate yourself from it to the point where you can kind of like almost like laugh at yourself or laugh at the situation, that's not necessarily a bad thing. And again, I want to be like sensitive because like by no means am I saying like, oh yeah, laugh at your trauma from the past. But that's a sign that you're separating yourself from it. Because when we're emotionally sensitive and we're in that headspace, it feels like everything resonates. And that's also why I try to be like very aware of with tarot readings. When people say if it doesn't resonate, it's not for you. When you're in this state of emotional dysregulation, no matter what the reading is, if you're in that headspace, you're like, yeah, nope, that applies, that resonates, is that me? And that's also like a trauma response. If you're resonating with everything that's being said, no matter what the reading is, whether it's career, whether it's love reading, whether it's a general reading, that is a sign that we want to do a little bit more like inner reflection to separate from suffering specifically, right? Because when we're attaching meaning to virtually everything, whether it's good, bad, in between, that might be a sign that we're in that dysregulated headspace, right? So the fact that the Three of Cups came out for like right here, right now, wonderful sign. Wonderful sign. And it is a positive card in this context. Okay. So let's see what's going on for the future. What does the future hold? Okay. Let's see what we get. Okay, a lot of cup cards today. Jeez. All right, cool. So we get the King of Cups, right? So how weird for the future we got a King of Cups. Huh. Okay, hold up. Yeah, I want to look at all the cards in it, and I'm gonna put them up to the screen in a second, okay? Huh, interesting. Okay, cool. So we're looking at the symbolism, right? So we have a what looks to be a male figure, right? Holding the cup. So, not to alarm anybody, but the energy that I got with this specific card was someone who might be emotionally unavailable, right? And again, I'm not trying to alarm you, but if we're thinking about like the future, if right now we're feeling that sense of joy, that sense of laughter with the Three of Cups, the King of Cups is someone who is kind of like stoic, who might be like suppressing their feelings. And I also think about, for some reason in this context, I'm getting like a Pisces energy. So it could be that you may be meeting a Pisces in the future. It could be that in the future there might be someone that you encounter that might have a little bit of these emotional suppression tendencies. This could also be you, right? So if you're thinking about future context, what are the situations in which we would have to suppress our emotions, right? So something that I think about with that is actually a privilege to be able to feel your feelings fully, in the sense of sometimes life circumstances happen in such a way that you don't get a chance to fully process them. Kind of like when life comes at you quickly, kind of like when things are happening one after another, right? And again, I don't think it's necessarily like a negative card, but there's definitely going to be a little bit of that like emotional unavailability themes that come up, right? So that's just something to be like mindful about moving forward. And that's also kind of like going to be in a 6 months to a year time frame. I'm not really getting any romantic or relationship energy from that card. But since it's a collective reading, relationships don't necessarily have to be romantic, right? They could just be partnerships. They could be people that you meet along the way. This could be someone that you're working with, could be someone that you just stumble upon, right? Um, I keep getting Pisces for some reason, and if that resonates to any of you, like awesome, and if it doesn't, that's also fine. But I want to bring all three of these together now, okay? So let us do it in this way. So again, over here, we've got our Queen of Cups. You were forced to emotionally mature very quickly within the last 6 months to a year, right? Again, no matter what it was that was going on, whether that was like, again, work, relationships, whether that was friendships, whether that was just trying to figure out what you want to do with your life, right? You were forced to grow up very quickly. With the Three of Cups in the present moment, being fully present, enjoying your time with your loved ones, your friends, inner circles. Enjoy it and understand that you deserve to be fully present and that you deserve happiness, right? Now, for the future with the King of Cups, this is just asking you to be mindful of anyone who might have like that emotional avoidance tendency or patterns. This could also be someone who like enjoys. So okay. I don't know why that saying came to mind, but someone who enjoys hitting the bottle, if you catch my meaning, right? This might be someone who, in a lot of aspects, checks off all the boxes that you think about, right? Could be someone who you're like, all right, like you're a great leader, you're an expert of your field, could be romantic, right? You're like hits all the boxes, but maybe they engage in a little bit more of that overindulgence, right? Doesn't even have to be specifically like alcohol. It could be anything. Remember, escapism comes in a lot of forms. Could be video games, could be work, like when I tell you, as a recovering workaholic, okay, there's a lot of things that people will engage in when it comes to escapism, right? So this could even be us, right? This could be you in the sense of being mindful of escapism tendencies, emotional avoidance. Just continue to check in as you navigate your future, right? If you are noticing you're feeling like numb or you're uninterested or you're disconnected, again, because like if we got that Three of Cups energy right now, like fully present, enjoying the moment, celebrating with friends, making connections, if in the future you're like, because then this is going to be like over some time. If at any point you notice yourself start to be like pessimistic, you're noticing yourself like numbing, if you're noticing that lack of interest in general, that's just a sign to be mindful of and be aware of, right? None of this is set in stone, by the way, right? Like I'm not a psychic, I'm not claiming to be. This is all for insight building because we're creatures of habit. So I'm looking at this from like a behavioral pattern standpoint, right? So if you are forced to grow up, you had to like be emotionally mature in the present moment, you're living it up, you're being happy in the future, right? Being mindful of not suppressing those feelings, right? Now, if you're in a situation where you're forced to and you cannot, you got to do what you got to do, different story, right? But always be aware. Check in with your emotional state. Your body and your mind will tell you if something feels good or not, and see if you can position yourself to lean more towards what feels good, right? So the steps that you take now are going to put you in a better position 6 months to a year from now, right? So again, not to alarm anybody, but just in terms of like a behavioral standpoint perspective. That's what I think about when the King of Cups shows up, because that's usually someone, again, like very stoic, very much like not doing the feelings thing. If we're thinking about like the whole cup suit, right? From like the One of Cups to the King, right? He's been there, done that. Nothing really phases him in terms of emotions. Right? And this is the precaution piece. Just because you've seen it all doesn't mean that you want to numb yourself, because that also is the key piece that makes us human. If we're feeling desensitized emotionally, remember that's also like that compassion fatigue. You want some level of compassion, you want to care somewhat, because again, that's what connects us as human beings, right? We're all just a bunch of like numb zombies that are just like, yep, nope, that got nothing to do with me. How are we supposed to call upon and build that community, right? So just some things to be aware of. So, all right. So again, past, had to grow up quick, right? You had to grow up, you had to put a lid on your feelings, literally, okay? Present moment, you're living it up. Have fun with your friends, have fun with your loved ones. This is something also, again, just a precaution. Just be mindful of not having too much fun, right? Again, being fully present is not an invitation to be reckless. So, something to keep in mind. And then for the future, right, if we have to be in a stoic mindset or we have to engage in some type of like emotional avoidance or suppression, be aware that you're choosing to do that and that at any point you can choose something differently, right? Okay, so I think that's about it for these cards. I love these cards so much. My gosh, shining brighter than the sun, I swear. Okay, cool. So, with that being said, that's about it for this past, present, future reading. Once again, I really appreciate your time as always, everybody. You are always divinely protected, and I hope you have a amazing rest of your day or night whenever you're watching this. And yeah, again, just appreciate you. Alrighty, take care.